My parents left my 9-year-old on a lonely road just for getting carsick. But before I share my story, please take a minute of your precious time to support our channel. Your support and love keeps us going. When my 9-year-old daughter, Amara, got carsick during a family outing, my parents decided she was ruining the trip for the other grandchildren. Their solution? They forced her out of the van and left her standing alone on a deserted stretch of road. I didn't scream or argue. I acted. 2 hours later, everything in their world began to shift. The call came in the middle of my workday. The name Mom lit up my phone. Normally, I ignore those calls. They're usually about forgotten Wi-Fi passwords or another fundraiser she wants me to sponsor. But this time I picked up. Her voice was crisp, almost cheerful. "Janelle, you'll need to come grab Amara. She got sick in the car. We left her at a safe spot. Shouldn't be more than 20 minutes from your office." I went still. "Excuse me? You left my child where?" She was nauseous, my mother said, as if she were talking about the weather. "We couldn't risk the others catching it. And we have a flight to Atlanta tonight. We couldn't delay. You'll get to her quickly." I thought I'd misheard. My father's voice floated through the background, low but firm. "Don't make a big deal, she's fine. We dropped her off where there are folks nearby."
Fine. Right.
Because when your child throws up in a moving car, the reasonable response is to abandon her like she's nothing more than an old suitcase. They texted me a pin drop and hung up.
Just like that.
I grabbed my keys and flew out the door. Traffic moved like molasses. My fingers locked on the steering wheel so tightly my hands throbbed. In my head, their words kept replaying. "She's fine. Don't overreact." They had always been good at making cruelty sound like common sense. When I finally pulled up to the spot, my heart twisted. There was Amara, standing by herself, clutching her backpack like it could protect her from the emptiness of the road. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, her little shoulders hunched, eyes swollen from crying. The street stretched bleak and bare around her, and for a second I couldn't breathe. The instant she saw me, her face crumpled. She bolted toward the car, stumbling into my arms. "Mom," her small body shook against me. I held her tight. "I'm here, baby. You're safe now." Her words came between hiccups. "They told me I couldn't come. They said I was too sick."
"But I wasn't, Mama."
She swallowed hard. "I just felt dizzy in the car." Her hands trembled as I cupped her face. "You got carsick?" She nodded. That was all. Carsick. Not the flu, not a virus, just motion sickness, the kind every kid gets sometimes. Normally, you crack a window, hand them water, promise them ice cream later. But my parents thought it was reason enough to discard her on the roadside. I buckled her into the seat, forcing calm into my voice. "Listen to me, Amara. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. This isn't your fault." She sniffled, staring at her hands. "They said I ruined everything." A bitter laugh escaped me. "The only thing ruined here is their reputation as grandparents." She gave me the smallest, shaky smile, but her tears didn't stop. As I drove us home, anger wrapped tighter and tighter inside me. My parents thought they were being clever, disguising cruelty with logic. She was sick. We had to think of the others. We had a flight to catch. But all I could see was my daughter's face, pale and tear-streaked, standing alone on that road. Back home, I tucked her onto the couch with a blanket and some water. She clung to me like she was afraid I'd disappear, too. I stroked her hair, whispering, "You're safe now. I've got you, and you'll never go through something like that again." But inside, my thoughts burned. They assumed I'd swallow this. They assumed I'd keep paying, keep contributing, keep enabling, no matter what. But when I pulled Amara into my arms on that roadside, something shifted. This wasn't just another manipulation, another, "Oops, we didn't mean it." This was the line, and they had crossed it. That night, as Amara drifted off clutching my hand, she whispered, "Are you mad at me?" Tears pressed hot in my throat.
"No, baby.
I'm mad at them, and they're about to regret it." She closed her eyes, finally peaceful. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every nerve in my body humming with resolve. They thought abandoning Amara was practical. I knew it was unforgivable. And from that night forward, the unraveling of their perfect little world began. If you want to know why I snapped, you have to understand the soil my parents grew. No, engineered me in. Efficiency was their creed. Not love. Not patience. Not nuance. If something didn't serve the plan, it got cut. That included me, more often than not. I grew up the afterthought. My brother, Quincy, 2 years older, handsome and smooth as a radio host, was the headliner. You'd never be able to prosecute their favoritism in court. It lived in the tiny choices, the soft edits that add up over time. They were maestros at it. When I was 11, I qualified for a regional debate meet I'd trained for all spring. I'd circled the date on the kitchen calendar in pink marker. The same week, my parents booked a surprise getaway to Seabreeze Shores, boardwalk, fireworks, the whole postcard. I reminded them. They smiled like I was adorable and said I must have written the date wrong. They flew out with Quincy anyway and came back with bags of saltwater taffy, a plastic trophy he'd won at a game stall, and that serenade I'd grow to despise. What a shame you weren't there. As if they'd tripped into a vacation by accident and been trapped, helpless, in a beachfront condo for 10 days. So I adapted. If I couldn't be wanted, I would be necessary. By high school, I was the one who remembered everyone's appointments, edited college essays, and filled out forms. By the time I graduated, I'd learned to turn usefulness into armor. I chased stability with a stubborn kind of hunger, scholarships, internships, long nights, until I landed a role at a digital payments firm in Riverport. Not glamorous unless you swoon over pivot tables, but steady. It paid well and I got good at it. My husband, Deshaun, does fine too. Together, we're comfortable. In my family, comfortable is a dog whistle. It means you're the only adult in the room when the check arrives. We had a system, they said. Everyone contributes what they can. Sounds fair, until you watch the math over time. If you earned less, you pitched in less. If you earned more, you carried more. And more kept expanding until it swallowed nearly everything. Family trips? I'd lay out $1,300 to $1,900, while others slid in $250, maybe $450 if they were feeling generous. The so-called emergency fund? A noble idea on paper, for true crises. I kicked in $520 a month. Quincy, the golden headline, sent $110 when he remembered. Guess whose contributions covered the unexpected shortfall on my parents' mortgage last spring, their car insurance the summer before, and my father's upgraded lenses when he decided he couldn't see the road at night? Not Quincy. Not the cousins who posted Bible verses about generosity.
Me.
And half the time I wouldn't even know until after the money was gone. A lone text in the family thread. We had to tap the fund. Hope that's okay. As if I'd been given a vote. It wasn't just cash. I co-signed their mortgage, just for the rate, they promised, and later, their SUV lease, only for a year or two. We all knew what that meant. If they slipped, the bank would come to my door. They wrapped chains around my credit and called it duty. And I let it happen. Not because I was weak. Because I was trying to buy something I never had, a family that welcomed my child without conditions. I wanted Amara to have sleepovers with her cousins, summer cookouts with her grandparents, and memories that didn't begin with someone sighing, "What a shame you weren't there." So I paid for peace with a smile and a card on file. Then came the trip. Not just any vacation. This one had been marketed to our kids by 1,000 commercials, fireworks, animatronic parades, giant costumed mascots. The destination was Gulfview, with a 3-day pass to Sun Harbor Park. Amara had been begging for over a year. Every time she saw her cousins, she'd ask, "Are we going yet? Is it our turn?" When the invitation finally came, carefully timed for my busiest launch week at work, I almost said no. History had taught me things booked at my peak stress were never accidents. But the way Amara's face lit up when she heard Sun Harbor? She looked like sunrise deciding to stay all day. I caved. They're her grandparents. I told myself. They'll take care of her. Deshaun couldn't step in, Not just because of deadlines, but because 1 week alone with my family makes him break out in hives. So Amara left grinning, clutching her new turquoise backpack like treasure. And I paid. Of course I paid. $780 for Amara's airfare, hotel share, and park ticket. Another $1,050 toward group costs because I make more. $1,830 total, more than double anyone else. I told myself it was worth it. This was the dream she kept drawing in her sketchbook. Roller coasters, sparkling water, the castle fireworks. I tried to ignore the hollow echo. I was paying for inclusion again. Looking back, I want to shake that version of myself gently by the shoulders. Money can't buy safety from people who confuse control with care. It can't buy you a seat at a table built on selective love. I thought my credit card was a bridge for Amara. Instead, it paved the road they left her on alone, dizzy, clutching her backpack while her grandparents called it sensible. That night, after I brought Amara home and tucked her in, she asked me for the second time if she'd ruined everything. The words scraped raw. I took the pencil from her hand and looked her in the eyes. You didn't ruin anything, I told her. They did. And I promise you, they're about to feel the weight of that choice. I don't make promises lightly. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with coffee gone cold and started cutting cords. Click. Canceled the recurring transfer to the family fund. Goodbye, $520 a month. Click. Halted the optional trip contributions that always accidentally ran through my card. Then I called the bank about the mortgage and the lease company about the SUV. Calm voice, steady tone. I told them I would no longer guarantee my parents' debts and requested a full review of the accounts. Paper doesn't vanish in a phone call, I know how this works. But I also know what under review does to special fixed rates. It puts them on a clock. Variable terms creep in, payments rise, and for once the pressure would be theirs to manage, not mine. Only then did I text my parents. I attached the receipts. $780 for Amara's share of travel and lodging, $1,050 for the group pool. $1,830 total. My message was simple. You left Amara on the roadside. Return the money I covered for this trip. 10 minutes later, my mother called, her tone brittle, like porcelain about to crack. How dare you demand this? She's your daughter. You expect us to pay for her. I almost laughed. You mean the daughter you abandoned? Yes. I expect repayment. My father rustled the phone. She was ill. She couldn't go. Why should we pay for a child who didn't attend? You earn more than all of us. What kind of family makes the grandparents reimburse the mother? There it was. Not outrage over endangering Amara. Outrage over being invoiced. You left her alone, I said evenly. This isn't optional. You can't just walk away, my mother snapped. Who says I haven't already? I asked. Silence. Then my father's voice, suddenly uncertain. What about the emergency fund? What about it? You'll still deposit, right? No. Another beat. My mother's voice pitched higher. And the trips, you're still covering group costs. You can't just stop paying for family trips. Watch me. I could feel them scrambling. My father tried again, smaller now. The cosigns. You didn't touch those, did you? I made some calls. The quiet on the line turned heavy, like a storm pressing down. Then he reached for the card they've always loved to play. You're ungrateful, he shouted, desperation leaking through. We raised you. We sacrificed. You owe us. I almost smiled. I've been paying that debt my entire adult life. Thousands for your trips, hundreds every month into your fund, my name on your house and your car. I was your safety net. I just cut the cord. For the first time in years, they were speechless. When I set the phone down, my chest didn't clamp. My hands didn't shake. It felt like setting down a suitcase I'd been told was light, until I watched the floorboards spring back without it. In the living room, the only sounds were the refrigerator's hum and Amara's pencil whispering across paper. She looked up as I walked in. Was that them? She asked. Yeah, I said. They're not happy. Her shoulders curled. Are they still mad at me? I knelt to her eye level. No, baby. They're mad at me. And that's exactly where the anger belongs. Something eased in her face. A tiny smile, fragile, but real, tugged at one corner of her mouth. The storm hadn't passed. It had simply found its true address. They'd be loud. They'd be theatrical. They always were. But I was ready for their performance, and for the moment they'd forget the audience can read. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd retreat into silence after that phone call. But my parents don't do silence. They do theater. And this time, their stage wasn't a family dinner. It was the church bulletin board, the family group chat, and the neighborhood Facebook page. Their headline, "Poor Us." The first post I saw was in the family thread. My mother wrote, "Our daughter Janelle is demanding we pay her back nearly $2,000 for Amara's trip. Amara got sick and couldn't continue. Now Janelle expects us to cover the entire cost. She makes far more money than we do, but now she's refusing to contribute to the family emergency fund or help with family expenses. Please pray she comes back to her senses." Attached was a cropped screenshot of my message, just the part where I asked for repayment. Not a word about Amara being abandoned by the roadside. The comments rolled in. A cousin? $2,000? Seriously, Janelle? An aunt? You've always been dramatic. How can you treat your parents this way? A church friend? We'll pray for reconciliation. I stared at the screen, laughter bubbling sharp and bitter. Only my parents could strand a child on an empty road and still manage to paint me as the villain. So I replied, carefully, fact by fact. Amara wasn't sick. She was carsick. They left her on an empty road, sent me a pin, and drove away. She waited 20 minutes alone until I picked her up. No caps. No exclamation marks. Just truth. The thread fractured. Some messaged me privately. "This is awful, Janelle. I believe you." Others doubted. "That doesn't sound like your parents. Why would they do that?" That's the thing about my parents. They are masters at disguising cruelty as practicality. They've been doing it my whole life. Then my father couldn't help himself. He typed a reply, probably thinking it would shut everything down. Any rational person would have done the same. We had a flight to catch. She was sick. We couldn't risk the other children. We had no choice. I read it 3 times, and my stomach flipped, not with dread, but with satisfaction. There it was, in writing, their confession dressed as logic. And just like that, the tide turned, the thread exploded. You left her? You actually admitted it. Car sickness isn't contagious. What were you thinking? Screenshots flew. Relatives shared them in other chats. Neighbors reposted. By the time my parents realized their mistake and deleted the message, it was too late. The internet never forgets. By Sunday, the whispers had reached church. I didn't attend, I never do, but friends texted me updates. Your mom tried to give a testimony, but the pastor cut her off. No one would shake their hands afterward. They walked out before the service even ended. All those years polishing their image as pillars of the community, undone by one careless sentence. Almost, I felt sorry for them. Almost. But they weren't finished. Not yet. The next stunt came on Tuesday. They posted a screenshot of a transfer back to me, $1,830. Caption: Even though we already paid for Amara's place, Janelle demanded repayment. Here it is. Proof we paid. For a moment it worked. An uncle wrote, "Well, at least they repaid you. That shows good faith." A cousin chimed in, "This proves they're trying, Janelle. Maybe you should let it go now." I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. They wanted to make it look like one check canceled years of imbalance. So I pulled out my own receipts, literal ones. Emergency fund, $520 every month for 5 years. Family trips, $1,300 to $1,900 each time, multiple times. Mortgage and car lease cosigns. Other little extras that were never little. Total, over $38,000 in the last half-decade. I posted the photo of the receipts with a single caption. This isn't about one trip. This is about a lifetime of me carrying them. Then I closed my phone. Not to watch the fireworks. I didn't need to. The truth doesn't scream. It just sits there and spreads. And spread it did. Friends of friends sent me screenshots. They deleted your post, but everyone saw it already. Someone else messaged. They tried to speak at church again. The room went silent. A cousin's neighbor wrote privately, "People aren't looking at them the same anymore." That's the thing about reputations. They take decades to polish and only minutes to crack. And this time, my parents were the ones holding the hammer. 6 months later, I didn't need to go digging for updates. They found me. Word travels fast when people who once strutted around as pillars of the community begin to stumble. First came the finances. A cousin mentioned my parents lost their fixed-rate deal. Mortgage payments jumped. The SUV note doubled. Without my monthly contributions, the math simply didn't add up. Bills stacked. Panic followed. Then came the car, hauled off in broad daylight by a tow truck while neighbors peeked through blinds. By the next morning, the whole block knew. After that, the house went up for sale. Another relative sent me a photo of a for sale sign stabbed into their carefully manicured lawn. They sold quickly, but for far less than they wanted. No farewell party. No final dinner. Just boxes loaded quietly into a moving van. Socially, they didn't need to be exiled. They were erased. Invitations dried up. Cookouts, church anniversaries, birthday dinners gone. Folks who once lined up to greet them now crossed the street to avoid them. Bit by bit, they became ghosts in their own town. Meanwhile, Amara bloomed. We finally took her on the trip she'd begged for. But this time on our terms. Gulf View. Sun, Harbor Park. And she had both me and Deshawn beside her. She squealed when we pulled into the gates, bouncing so hard in her seat her braids shook. Watching her skip toward the carousel, laughter spilling like sunlight, I thought, every dollar I wasted propping up my parents now builds her joy instead. Her laughter was the sound of freedom. The real surprise came later. I'd heard faint rumors that with me gone, my parents leaned harder on Quincy. They assumed their golden child would open his wallet, swoop in, rescue them, take over the role I'd abandoned. They were wrong. When the requests came, Quincy didn't pay. And when the gossip spread, he didn't defend them. Because by then, money wasn't their only problem. They weren't just strapped, they were radioactive. He wasn't about to strap himself to sinking ships. The same son they worshipped, the one they bragged about at every cookout, cut the cord without ceremony. No support, no defense, no visits. Just silence. And so, the parents who once shined in the center of every room were left with no one. Not the church, not their friends, not even their favored son. Just the quiet they'd never learned how to sit with. Silence has a way of hollowing people out, and my parents were not built for it. They had always needed an audience, whether it was the congregation, the extended family, or the neighbors who lived for their polished holiday newsletters. Without admirers, they withered. But I didn't gloat. Not in front of Amara. My victories belonged to her now. At night, while she sketched her roller coaster memories in bright crayon colors, she would sometimes pause and ask softly, "Mama, are they still mad at me?" Each time, I answered the same, "No, sweetheart. They're mad at me, and that's exactly where the blame belongs." Slowly, the shame they'd planted in her began to fade. Her drawings grew brighter, her laughter came easier, and her questions shifted from guilt to excitement about our next adventure. Meanwhile, my parents tried one last act of theater. A neighbor told me they'd attempted to stand at church and give a testimony about forgiveness. But whispers drowned them out. Folks turned away. They walked out before the service ended. The people they once manipulated with half-truths and guilt had finally seen them clearly. And clarity is something you can't force back into the shadows. I didn't need revenge. Their undoing came from their own mouths, their own choices, their own arrogance. 6 months became a year. By then, they had sold the big house, lost the car, and downsized to a cramped apartment on the edge of town. Invitations stopped. Even Facebook posts from their loyal friends dwindled. They'd built their lives on appearances, and appearances had deserted them. Amara, on the other hand, thrived. Her grades climbed. Her art was displayed at a local gallery's youth showcase. On the day she stood in front of her painting, Bold strokes of color, joy bursting from the canvas. I knew the cycle had broken. She wasn't going to grow up learning that love was conditional or that her worth was negotiable. And me? For the first time in my life, I felt light. No monthly transfers draining my account. No anxious glance at the mail, dreading another bill I hadn't signed up for. No desperate scramble to keep the family peace alive. Just freedom. Sometimes people ask if I went too far, if cutting them off financially, socially, emotionally was too extreme. But when I replay the image of Amara on that road, backpack clutched tight, tears streaking her cheeks, I know my answer. I didn't go far enough. Because a parent's job is to protect their child, no matter what. And the moment they chose convenience over my daughter's safety, they stopped being parents and became strangers. So I cut them off. And I would do it again, 1,000 times, without hesitation. That was the moment I realized protecting Amara meant protecting myself too. Cutting my parents off wasn't about revenge. It was about breaking a cycle of control and showing my daughter that love is never conditional. They thought silence would break me. Instead, it set me free. So I'll ask you, what would you have done? Would you have given them another chance? Or would you have cut ties the way I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I want to hear your perspective. If this story hit home, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories about family, resilience, and reclaiming your power.